everybody. This is Linda Martin with the Safety Struggle. And today on our live stream, I've got two special guests that are going to talk to you about very special guests. And they're going to talk to you about zero harm, one pro and one con. And and these special guests are Dr. Fred Sherratt.
Oh, lovely. Nice. That is going good.
And Dr. Ciaran McAleenan.
Perfect. Yes, it's going to go smoothly, Linda. Nice.
So I know now I don't have to. I won't say your names. I can say Ciaran and Fred. So I'm good with that. So we're going to talk about zero harm today, and I've been looking forward to this since Dr. Beam had his class work on zero harm, and you guys were the coaches for pro and a con. And so I thought I would bring it to the live audience here and let you guys just go at it, because I know this is something that everybody in the industry talks about a lot, and everybody has an opinion, just like they have a bunch of other stuff. And this is how it's going to work. I would like you each to introduce yourself and give your opinion on zero harm, no zero harm. And you get 5 minutes. Okay. And then the next person will go for 5 minutes. And then I'm just going to let you go back and forth. And I'll try to moderate that, but I'm not really sure that's going to be possible once you get it out. And just for the listeners that are tuning in, these two people actually like each other. They a lot. And so don't get upset if they have differing opinions or you think that they're tearing each other down or any of that kind of stuff. This is purely academic standpoint and from their basis in the field in professional practice. So Dr. Ciaran, you get to go first. Please introduce yourself, and you got 5 minutes to describe your position on zero harm.
Okay, well, just Ciaran, thank you. And describing myself, I'm a mountain runner and I'm a human being. Everything else is the stuff that I do. But interestingly, what goes first? So that's the simple. You get to know me as you go along. If you want to know more, just ask Fred.
Put it in the chat. We can ask him questions in the chat.
That's good. Excellent. Good. Well, zero harm. That was interesting because until about 30 seconds ago, I didn't know I was going first. So thanks for that, Fred. Immediately. But what I immediately did was I picked up the good book.
Oh, I know that book.
What is that book? The ICE Manual of Health and Safety in Construction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think you're a contributor to, Fred, as well.
I might be, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in that.
Okay.
The reason I'm picking it up is there's a paragraph which I want to read out. I actually had a class today at one of our master's programs on organization business management, but we spent the day on ethics and zero harm discussion, so it was rather appropriate and timely. The other thing is I have another bunch of undergraduates who are submitting an essay on the zero harm debate, pro or con, but that's not coming into next week, so I can't use any of their material because we don't know what I should have put this back for at least another week. But I opened the book because I wanted to talk to the students this afternoon. I think it's useful because in one of the chapters about establishing operation control processes, there is a short section on the Vision Zero challenge. So I think it's nice to read it. Vision Zero says it's not some idealistic concept, but a very real prospect. The global leaders of safety regularly proclaim it as an achievable goal, despite the large number of work-related deaths annually from injury and ill health. Now that's straightforward enough. But this is the one that really cracks me up, if you can possibly put it like that. Here's my challenge. Now, this book was written in 2015. I'm looking forward to 2020 and using the Vision 2020 as a kind of catalyst. My challenge is a world of work where nobody gets hurt, starting from now, 2015, as we head towards 2020, I have a vision of a year of zero harm. In every country, every workplace, the worker goes to work and comes home safely every day of the year, and then maybe another year, and maybe another year. Right? So that was the challenge from 2015, looking towards 2020. How wrong can you get it? 2020, we're on top of all the work-related deaths that we normally experience. We've lost a few million people to COVID. Many of those are workers and contracted it in their workplace. So my vision for 2020 back in 2015 was kind of shattered quite badly. This is why I thought I would pick that out. Also because I wrote those words. I didn't just edit that part of it, I wrote the damn stuff. So it's, and as you said, it all stemmed, a lot of this stems from that conference in Belfast, which was in 2015, around about the same time we were authoring the book. The challenge, the theme around the conference was, can we make zero harm a reality? What's researchers around the world, what are they doing? That conference was primarily, as it is, always an academic conference, bringing all the researchers from around the globe who are looking at this sort of construction safety, health and well-being. And Robert Weatherup and I, who were organising the conference locally at the university, put together a keynote address, which we called Bashing the Heads of Bunny Rabbits, which you're a starring member of.
I was a bunny.
You were a bunny, yes. I have the video still. And,
yeah, I know.
But I often let to share it this evening. But the point of that, Bashing the Heads of Bunny Rabbit, was to showcase where we were with Vision Zero and where we could be. And not to say that Vision Zero is something that flick a switch and you get it, but it has to be a mindset, a concept, that's something we can stand over. But the interesting thing about the self in the keynote was to try and establish where various people were. And one of the things in the keynote was, they said on one side of the conference hall or the other, depending whether you're pro or anti. And as we spoke, because it was a joint keynote, as we spoke, you could get up and move around depending whether we persuaded you one direction or the other. So it was a very sort of good, healthy, well-being style of keynote where people got lots of exercise. And it was deliberately controversial, as you have to be, I think, with this subject. You have to challenge people to think and think differently. The premise behind the Bashing the Heads of Bunny Rabbits was the old arcade game. Most people know it as Whack-A-Mole. But Bashing the Heads of Bunny Rabbit, because over here we have a strange sense of humour, and some of our arcades in the 60s and 70s and 80s had bunny rabbits jumping out of the hole instead. The purpose of the game, as you know, is to keep bashing it until it stops coming up. So our approach was, well, let's find the bunny rabbit. Rather than blanketly trying to solve all the world's problems, trying to stop 2.7 million people from dying every year, which for one individual is almost an insurmountable challenge. So let's look at it from what you can control and influence. So what would your bunny rabbit be? What would you attack over and over and over again until you stopped it and then move on to the other? Which was the approach effectively for the zero harm. It's not about just let's solve this problem and hope for the best. Let's put it in our policy statement and hope for the best. Let's write it on the entrance of our buildings and so on, which most people do. But that's as far as they go. I mean, they've forgotten about it before the paint dries sometimes. But that's the thing. So we done that. But the interesting thing, and I'm going to read an email out to you because this was a cracking email. And I apologize for the swear word in the middle of it as well.
No, you can swear. Go ahead.
We invited the industry, as we always do with these academic conferences. We'd like the industry to come in and say, look, you academics, you're either getting it right or you're getting it wrong. You're talking crap, you don't understand things, or we would like you to do a wee bit more about X, Y, or Z. So we said, well, let's invite them in. So one of the country's leading safety people who works in construction wrote back to us after we invited, and he says, thank you for thinking about me. That's a nice start, you know. it goes downhill from there. Which is with the method of operation of our government, if you could call it that, towards health and safety, coupled with the consistent failure of anyone to have the balls to take a serious approach to sorting out our industry in terms of health, safety, and skills, I couldn't think of a more efficient waste of my time. And then you went on to explain why, and I won't go into the rest of it just yet, but I thought, an efficient waste of your time. I love that phrase because it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, if you're going to waste your time, do it efficiently. Okay. But after the stream of consciousness that he let fly in the email, I wrote back with a simple one-liner saying, that's the very reason you should be here. But he never came.
He blocked you.
He blocked me. Ever since, we've got lots of friends in high places, yeah.
Exactly.
But that was the start. Well, it's not the start of it, because I've been a Vision Zero person all my life, effectively. Because I don't believe you should harm anyone in any of your endeavors, including yourself, although sometimes you do harm yourself for whatever reason, sometimes for sport, sometimes accidentally, if you can believe there is such a word as an accident.
That's for another day.
That's for another day, yeah. And then I'll stop at that point because I'll wait to see.
I was going to cut you off, so I'm glad you were going to stop.
Yeah.
Fred is in her box up there in her corner, and I think she's ready to go. What is your position, Fred, on zero harm?
Well, so there's some interesting kind of fundamentals at play here. The first one being that Ciaran and I don't actually disagree on some very core points. So I do not think that we should be creating accidents, and I do not think that this is that it's okay. That's the fundamental premise, and I don't think anybody does. But the problem with zero is how we do it. So what we have, so zero came into my life when I was still working on site, and very interestingly, Linda, my old health and safety director, is in the chat pointing out we haven't seen each other in 20 years, a long time, right? Anyway, so I was actually a site person when this started becoming a thing, and it was really interesting because I could see that people were kind of getting involved with it and all that sort of thing, but they're kind of going, yeah, but the real world, like your fella there, Ciaran, he's a waste of my time. Why would we do this when it's just not going to work? And this is where we end up with divergence between ideologies and different sorts of utopias, which is this is our utopia. For people on this call, this is what we're here for. Our utopia is zero harm. And that's great. But the problem with utopias tends to be how you construct them and how you pull them together. So we often see, and there's a way of splitting this in half, which is kind of the hook that I put on my paper, is we either have an approach where we're going for a blueprint utopia. This is how you can get there. You can do your stages. Ciaran, I'm afraid I'm pulling your bunny rabbits in here. And yes, Ciaran did make me wear a hard hat. With other people. I wasn't on my own. This wasn't like ritual humiliation or anything. There were other people involved. And that makes it sound a bit more dodgy. It really
was it inclusive though?
It was very inclusive. We all had bunny rabbits and someone was hitting us with a large inflatable mallet. It was really quite impressive. So but these are your bunny rabbits, Ciaran. These are the let's fix this bit and move on. And the way we tend to do that within an industry is, okay, so we like numbers, right? Zero, biggest number in construction site safety, and that is the best sentence I have ever written. So, because it is our biggest number, it's what we go for. But what we also then tack on are things like accident frequency rates. So, hey, I know a good way of getting to zero. If our AFR is 1 point something, we take it down to 0 point something, we take it down to 0.0 something. Hey, that's like zero. That's how that would work, right? And that's a blueprint approach to zero where we do X, Y, Z, this will happen. Now, we all know that it doesn't actually kind of work like that because, as Ciaran's professional friend said, what a useful waste of my time, because of
efficient waste of his time.
Efficient waste of time, because we have things like this. So I'm just sorry, I'll do my bit and then I'll catch up with the chat because there's some interesting stuff happening there. So what we have are this sort of idea of a blueprint utopia where there is a way of getting there, and the opposite to this is an iconoclastic utopia. Castles in the sky, absolute daydreams. What can we imagine, right?
Right.
And the problem I sort of found, because I have explored this a bit, and what I sort of found out is that it depends where you sit. If you're a senior manager, if you're corporate, a blueprint utopia is brilliant. You get a plan. So Ciaran has referenced 2020, I think you were writing about. The original zero harm was 2012. I think I'm right in the UK. That was Balfour Beatty's big target. And of course, 2012 came and went. And this blueprint and this utopia was not achieved within their organization. But that it was always going to struggle because of all the bigger problems we have. So safety is a systemic issue. It's not something you can isolate. I'm afraid I disagree with Ciaran that you can isolate it into individual bunny rabbits that we hit until they are no more. And yeah, we are peculiar over here in the UK.
But we're very good at causing extinction in animals, right? So I feel like maybe he's got a point.
Well, he has. But the problem is these individual bunny rabbits that build up to our blueprint utopia, they're the problems that we have around just economic externalities, around lowest cost tendering, about production pressures, about all those things, right? And everybody kind of lives those on site. So whilst people in corporate are super happy, they've got a brand, they've got a logo. Oh my God, and it's big and it's round, and we all love that kind of stuff, right? So you can make a great big orange zero, and that just looks fab, and everyone can buy into it, and you can
wear
a brand.
On the shirts,
yeah, it's a brand, right? But it's not. It doesn't actually keep sort of get us anywhere. John is putting some really interesting stuff in there that I want to talk to in a minute. So anyway, we've got this blueprint utopia situation. The opposite is this iconoclastic. Now, people in corporate want the blueprint. They think they can make this orderly bunny bashing happen, and eventually the site will see zero, right? The guys on site, and I am talking construction for everyone on here because that's my place I play in. The guys on site know that the bunnies are not going to be dealt with by another change of high-vis and a sticker on their hard hat, right? Yeah. They know that is not going to make a blind bit of difference. But do you know what they do know? They know they need the iconoclastic utopia. They're not saying zero is not what we should. We've got to be able to dream it, because otherwise, what are our endeavors for? What are our efforts for? But we're not daft enough to think that creating a new sticker for our hard hat is actually going to bring about this change. But we need it in order to continue to think that maybe it'll be okay. That even to the point where I can kind of see them imagining this as we won't have any accidents, simply because in order to get up and go to work, you don't want to think people are going to get hurt. So that's a big difference between the different ways of positioning this. And there is lots of evidence. There's the way the different Scandinavian countries implemented their Vision Zero for the road traffic safety, where one set it as a target, one set it as a vision, and the one that had the vision, I think, did much better improvements than the one that was doing a very, very bureaucratic measuring approach. We also have a big difference between zero harm and zero tolerance. So, for example, the Olympics in London in the UK, Olympics 2012, first ever Olympics where nobody died building it. Woohoo! Get in. Wasn't that good? They didn't have an accident frequency rate of zero. I can find out what it is if anyone wants to know, but it was not zero harm. There was not zero harm on that job. But they had a zero tolerance, and they did amazingly well. They got awards for the safety. The fact nobody died is fantastic. What an achievement. But the Olympics wasn't a real job either. It is often positioned as such, but the world was watching. We had to be on time, and there was enormous investment in the health and safety. The reason we know how it worked so well was because guys from universities were crawling all over that site, checking out what was going well, what wasn't. Seriously, they threw all the cash at this as well. The problem was that then we got complacent. We kind of here in the UK, we went, yay, we got zero tolerance really well on the Olympics. So it kind of got transposed into zero harm. And that was put in place, or Target Zero, I think it was, that we put on Crossrail, which was a big tube we've dug right the way through the middle of London in the ground. So that kind of happened. Again, same principles, same buoyancy. Yes, we can do this. And they had a fatality not long after starting, because firstly, the Olympics wasn't real, but also because they were trying to make zero harm happen within a space where there were so many different elements of policy. There was stuff coming. They had loads of different subcontractors and so on. And it doesn't quite really work. And it's this disillusionment that is critical. If you want your workers on your team, if you want people on board, they've got to buy into what you're saying. And if you're saying, you know, zero, we can get there and we're going to do it by X, Y, Z, and nothing is different from what you told them the time before when we had a different brand, or the time before that when we were doing safety culture, or the time before that when we were doing behavior-based safety, all the times before that, right? If nothing has fundamentally changed about the nature of those bunny rabbits, people aren't daft. They know nothing else is going to really change either. So what is super, super important with zero is how we do stuff with it.
Yeah.
Am I nearly on time?
You are on time. I was just going to say, you know, I mean, you're talking about a very dynamic system, right? When you're working in construction, and to give even like the vision, right? There's still a vision, and no matter how it's supported, no matter how it's portrayed to the workers or filters down to the line level work, it's still dynamic. You're not going to change that dynamic nature. And so, and I said I wasn't going to take a position, but I feel like okay, I'll stop there.
We're 20 minutes in, Linda.
All right, so I'm gonna ratchet that back. There are some questions coming in the chat, and I didn't know, Ciaran, if you wanted to take the first question from the chat, any one that you see that you want to riff on a little bit.
Okay, possibly, yeah.
I think your bro's making a damn good point.
All right.
So I'll throw that up there, Philip.
Okay. Yeah. Well, first off, I will address that, but a couple of points here. Interesting. Yeah, stickers and badges are part of the problem.
I know, right?
Yeah. So that we agree. Utopia. I love utopia, and why wouldn't we strive for utopia? One form of utopia is Narnia, the fable of Narnia, which is I run quite regularly in the forest that is Narnia, so I love that sort of concept. And why shouldn't you strive for utopia rather than dismiss it? And often, as you know, Philip and I have been working on this since the mid to late 90s. And we've often been accused of being utopian. And I think that's not an accusation, you know, that's a badge of honor. I'm quite happy to be that. And why wouldn't we be that? But the interesting thing you said about the Olympics not being a real project, the Olympics was set up, it was so unreal in so many ways. But one of the things it was a client-driven approach to zero, but they didn't set a zero harm target. They set a target to have a construction workplace that was no more harmful than an office environment, and they achieved that. Now, if it wasn't a real project, there were 50 major contractors' projects happening simultaneously in a very small space of time. It was massively controlled. You were right. The eyes of the world were on it. ICE, we were involved. We were all over it as well. We were involved in the writing of that safety health policy, and they had a very strong, very strict approach to it. Particularly their health regime was second to none. But the point of that wasn't just to say at the end of it, how great are we? There was supposed to be a legacy. It was supposed to be that whenever the next Olympic Village and stadia were being built, or the next World Cup stadia were being built, we could take all that learning. If we can do it once, we can do it twice, we can do it again. The same as my 2020 prediction in 2015. If we can do it once, we can do it again. And they proved they could do it. And if you look at who's involved in the more recent ones, they're probably the same or variations of the same people or same companies, whether you're talking about Qatar or elsewhere. But the fatalities are back again. Now, is that because the eyes of the world are not on them? Or is that because the client isn't all over them to deliver the exact same thing? Or is this degree of tolerance towards harm, no matter how fatal that harm might be? Go back through some of the major projects in history, and they're all littered with fatalities. But we laud the heroes who designed them, and we forget the workers who fell at the feet to deliver it. And whether that's putting a rail line trans-Canada, or whether that's building the Titanic that's floated out of Belfast, or some of the other, the Panama Canal and so on. I mean, the Canadian Railway, for instance, there was four workers per mile died on that. 3,000 miles of track, 12,000 workers. Now, there are some people who argue that's wrong, and there's only 600 died, as if that's a good thing.
It's better.
Right. In the same sense, there was a wonderful thing that was unearthed in the archives of the shipbuilding company in Belfast in relation to the Titanic. They had an acceptance rate of 1 death per £100,000 spent on construction of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
It was £1.5 million to build the ship at the time. We're talking about 1912, which meant that 15 was a target.
Yeah.
No more than 15 deaths. They had 8 deaths on the construction of the Titanic. So success. And it's how you measure things. You know, we haven't killed as many as we thought we might. So that's okay.
And that actually was the same thing here in the U.S. when they built the Golden Gate Bridge, right? It was $37 million project, and they expected 1 death per $1 million. And they didn't have that many deaths, so success, right?
Success, yeah. And so you're putting monetary value on life, and then saying success when you save some money.
Right.
Fred's
dying to get in here.
I am, because I'm going to throw another project at you, Ciaran, that didn't kill anybody and didn't have zero harm as a target. So I think we'll find that when Eiffel built his tower, at the same time as the first crossing was going across the Forth in Edinburgh. And we know that on Eiffel's tower, nobody died. Yeah. And in Scotland, exactly the same sort of project. We're doing stuff out of steel quite high up, bit dodge. They're still revealing and arguing about that one as well, Ciaran. But I agree. I think it's 90 odd and it's too many. Any is too many. But the thing was that what Eiffel did wasn't have a zero target or anything. All he actually did was show compassion and leadership for his workers. He had a canteen that rose with the floors, where the steel fixers could have their glass of wine at lunchtime because, hey, we're in France and it's the end of the 19th century, but without having to climb all the way down and back up. He sheeted his workers off to protect them, and the speeches that are on record from the end of that project are a delight to read. We have done it before. But the way we did it then wasn't about branding. It wasn't about we're only going to kill this many people. What actually happened was there was incredibly robust safety leadership. There was somebody able to get the money. And I've seen money pop up quite a lot, of course, in the chat, because, hey, neoliberal economics does not value life, unfortunately, at all, as we are finding out really quite rapidly in recent times. I completely agree. We have done it before. And I am forever in awe of Eiffel's ability to do that at a time when people should have died. And if you read, the other interesting thing is if you read Hansard, which is where they write down all the things that our wonderful politicians say in the House of Parliament in the UK, if you go back to sort of early 1830s, 40s, when they were arguing about the Health and Morals of Apprentices Act, what you find is that people were talking about certain trades where there was a likelihood of death. Oh my days. In construction, you were just expected to die. It was like, there is a beautiful phrase. I can't remember it precisely, but there is this awesome quote of some dude going, well, if you work construction, good luck for getting past 30 or something. And you're right. These are values, but not dissimilarly, Eiffel came in and did something totally different without all this kind of nonsense, or without this focusing on figures to get us there. He actually invested and did that properly. And that, by the way, fits with the iconoclastic utopia I spoke about. Why wouldn't we want to strive for zero? That's what I'm saying, Ciaran. This is why Ciaran and I don't argue very well, because that is exactly where people on site know in their heart, yes, this has to be what we're striving for. But you know what, guys? The way you're trying to implement this and make this happen on us, get real. This ain't going to work in the way we're doing shit right now. So we need to do something different. So I'm gonna see if Ciaran wishes to respond to that, and then I'm gonna dive in the chat.
There's a ton of chat. There's a ton of chat here. So go ahead, Ciaran.
That, and then we'll come back, because this is the interesting thing. We're arguing, but we're both on the same side in many occasions, which is how we tend to operate, I think. But the interesting thing out of the Eiffel story is that we didn't put a label on it. We didn't wear the badge on our sleeve or the T-shirt. It was just a caring designer, caring employer, looking after their people, and that's a lot of what it should be about. Now, a lot of where my early work came from was putting a system into an organization, one of the major public sector organizations back in the late 90s, and they had an awful safety management system. They had a bunch of people who, every time there was a new regulation or new code of practice, they took it and they rewrote it, but then put the name of the organization in against where it said your company should or whatever else. And they published these ad nauseum and wondered why nobody actually followed their safety manual. Nobody read the damn thing. Nobody could read it. Nobody wanted to. I came along. They were actually looking for someone to take on the senior safety position. I thought, well, I'll give that a go, see what it's like. So I said, look, let's change this around. Let's scrub all that. Let's actually go and talk to the workers about what the issues are. Let's go and talk to them about the safety controls that they already apply and why they apply them and what they would want to know, and let them write the safety manual. And that's what we done. We sat down with them, with myself and a colleague, and we brought them in groups and focus groups, and we talked about the various issues. And then we went and talked to the managers after we talked to them about those issues. And some of the managers bought it very well and very quickly, right up to director or chief executive level, because what we had said to them was, look, you've got a serious problem. They were injuring people around about 70 a year, which is quite substantial, and there were, some of them were life-altering. Very few fatalities. I'm saying very few, but there were some. But a lot of life-altering injuries. I said, look, we can get rid of that over time. Now, there were two choices. I could have said, we will drop this to next to nothing within 3 years. And they would have said, take a walk. It ain't going to happen. Yeah. I thought, well, let's put it a different way. I'll drop this by 10% year on year if you take this approach. I will save you over £3 million per year. And we're back in the 90s. Through lost time and re-education programs, everything you have to do every time somebody's injured.
Yep.
70 people equals £3 million per year, roughly. But and there's money on people again,
Right.
when you're talking to the board level, you've got to talk in that language, but you've got to present them an alternative. And the alternative was that the workers would decide what was appropriate, when it was appropriate, and how they would use the various safety controls, whatever they happen to be. They would, their managers would meet with them and talk to them about budgets in relation to what they needed. But this didn't mean we were just opening the door and everything would happen. They would ask for everything. They would have to justify their choices and put it on a wish list from high priority downwards, down to something that would be really nice to have. But regardless of what they asked for, the minimum would be that they were safe to do the job and safe to complete the job, and there wouldn't be any injuries. And in doing that, I told them that it was 10% per year, right? within 3 years, we were down by more than 70%. We had down to less than 10 people being injured, and they were only minor. There was no life-altering injuries anymore. And there was an approach. We went round the organisation, and people were willing to talk about safety from a very positive perspective because they could see that their managers were bought into it. Now, granted, not all, because big organisations, you don't buy everybody in. You've got the dinosaurs who won't realise they should have been extinct. There's more animals down the tube. But the point was that the majority were seeing it that way, and bit by bit the workers were seeing it that way. And there's certain measures you use sometimes to see how things are buying into it. Yeah. And what I chose to do was there was 2,000 workers, and I chose to go around and talk to them all in groups of 10, 15, 20, 40, whatever they put up, around all the different depots. And there was one depot with the notorious shop steward who didn't believe anything that came from management. I don't blame him. But notoriously, he would come into every safety meeting, every training event, and he'd pull out his red top newspaper. He would set himself center stage and stare out the presenter and just read his newspaper at the same time. So that was an intimidating thing. So they warned me that when I went there, I was going to get this, so I was waiting for it. But we had produced this, by that stage, the workers' handbook. They had written it. We collated it, checked it, and put it out. And it was a nice little pocket safety book. It was designed very ruggedly to sit inside overall pockets. It was designed to be scribbled all over and used and abused, and then replaced if need be. And throughout that session with him, he sat reading the pocket safety book.
Oh, that's better. That's a huge improvement.
Now, what that was doing was that message was going out around all the people that he was representing in the shop steward role to say there's something decent here. Give it a chance, let it work. Yeah. And bit by bit, we worked it. And strangely enough, the only people who hated the system were the existing safety advisory officers.
Well, so I was going to comment on that as you were going along, that what you described that you just did takes a lot of effort, right? And it's what we're put. I don't know if it's what we're put on the earth for, but it's what we're supposed to be doing as safety managers, safety officers, all these things, justifying to management, looking at ROI, talking to the workers, bringing the workers' ideas and trying to broker that situation between management and workers so that it works, right? That improvement can be made. Now, this is just my opinion, which I like to preface it with. There are a lot of safety officers that they'll look at that and say, that's just a lot of work. That's a lot of work. I'm busy. I just can't wrap my head around all of what you just said, right? Yeah. I mean, that's great. Read it in the textbook, heard it in my class, but I've got 2,000 workers and I'm not doing that.
So what else are you going to do?
It breaks the system. Fred's waiting to talk here, and I know she's got some answers for the people in the chat. Also.
Well, I do, but Ciaran, I love you dearly. Where's the zero in what you just said, dude?
I didn't.
I know. You are advocating for zero.
No, this is the point.
I know, but you're pro zero. This isn't how you carry on.
But you don't persuade people by giving them something that they believe it to be unattainable. You give them something that works.
So should we be using zero as a word at all?
Yes, but it's not a target, what you were saying earlier. It's the vision. The vision always has to be that day after day, I can go, right. Nobody pays me enough money to come home injured or come home in a box, which one of our students said that this afternoon, and I think that's right.
I completely agree.
So you talk about it as a vision because you can't have a vision that says anything else other than I don't want to harm anybody in what I'm doing.
So was the word zero explicitly littered through this process that you developed?
No.
Yeah. Right. Dude. Semantic argument here. I have never said that I disagreed with the iconoclastic utopia of zero. I do not think we should use
The word zero.
Either ideas. But yeah, quite. But so Ciaran, you have just put forward an awesome case study example of all the good things, right? And you did not use zero once. So why would we support and give companies an easy grab onto something like zero harm, target zero, whatever you want to call it?
But you challenge them whenever they go down that road. Because you mentioned Balfour Beatty and a few others went down that road.
Yeah, lots of people did.
But scratch the surface of those companies, question the ethics of those companies.
Of course, it's nonsense. But that's my problem with it.
These are the same companies that were found to be blacklisting their trade union workers for taking up health and safety issues, and yet they wore it in the badge. And why they wore it as a badge was so that the clients, and these are tier one contractors, who are already complicit with a lot of the public sector clients. They don't have to. All they have to do is put the badge up because they're getting the job no matter what. That's not the issue.
Why not target utopia or target reduction?
I mean, this is the point Ciaran and I diverge on, because I would, as a safety, as an advocate for all the things of, it's not worth going home in a box. Nothing is worth going home in a box for work. Trust me, I've spent all day doing that about getting people back teaching on campus. So I've just spent 2 hard days making sure my faculty is safe. So that we don't fundamentally disagree on this, but the reason I am anti-zero is because of its misuse, because of its abuse, because people think it does matter. And people in senior leadership think it matters. They think it's important. They think they could inspire with this. And I kind of, as Brian said, we're going for excellent here. We're not, but zero creates this strange and infuriating dissonance where if you're trying to talk to people, the guys that you got to do the awesome stuff, engaging with their own safety, owning it, getting on with it. If you want them to come and not open their newspaper, the worst thing you can do is throw zero into the mix and use it as a label. Philip, again, is trying to bring semiotics theoretically into our debate. But I expect, Philip, you're going to do that every single time I'm on this, I hope.
I mean,
because these are points. But actually, I don't think people. I don't think
people get zero, and I think that's the problem. Is when you say zero, even the lowest common denominator of education experience, whatever it is across the board, they get that zero's the big old, like you said, the big old circle, right? And there's no wiggle room in zero. It's just zero is zero, period. The big zero, and so. When you say that, they're like, that's ridiculous, right? It's like infinity.
Of course.
Exactly. Well,
it's ridiculous when you say we will have 0 accidents this year, because anything different to that means you've failed. It's part of the criticism of it. But if your vision is 0, you never fail. You just keep striving. Now, somebody mentioned call it excellence, but excellence went through the same thing with
it did. I remember. I'm a bit young to remember that, Ciaran, I'm afraid, but I believe it happened.
But I think even if you couple vision with zero, right? People still get zero. They don't get vision, because vision is different for everybody. It's like saying perception 0.
Yeah, right. But when you put labels, and this is the problem, Linda, when you put labels on, people stick to the label only, and not what's behind it. And what was described earlier was what was behind that. If I'd have stuck a label on it, like if I'd have told the board of that company that I was working with, I'll get you to 0 in 3 years, I wouldn't have been there. If I'd have said I will drop your accidents by 80% or 70% in 3 years, I wouldn't have been there doing anything for them. They would have said, that's ridiculous. But if you give them all the methods behind it, if you actually show the caringness that goes with delivering on that, and people see the real delivery of it, then you get what you need. There was no system in place. There was no ISO whatever or quality number that stuck behind it. It was just a very simple, very basic system of treating people as human beings and asking them what impacts them and helping them to deliver on how to mitigate those impacts. And when we go down that road, and the problem with the targets and the rest of it is that we have too many examples of people who have abused it and then say it's wrong because a dozen construction companies who are of dubious heritage use that same label and abused it throughout, and they have a history of abusing their workers in so many other ways that why would you expect that they would suddenly look after their health and well-being if they would disabuse them in so many different other fora? So you can't diss the idea just because then it has been abused by others and therefore it won't work.
But Ciaran, can I get you to concede that there are different hows around zero? That there are different, as you say, we can't just use it for that. So for example, I see Brian and John in the chat talking about zero tolerance, which was, of course, I think, and I'm going to get American history totally wrong here, that's what the New York police did in the 70s. That was kind of their thing around crime and stuff like that. I mean, John's there saying zero tolerance of what? Well, it's zero tolerance of I don't want to get into another argument and Philip put me up on it. So there is that. But I mean, the reason that I struggle with it, and Nathan's raised some point. In fact, you mentioned something earlier, Nathan. Sorry, I was going to pull up there. Is this idea of reporting, in which it does create problems. I've been on a site where we had an accident and everyone, oh well, that's that shot then. Might as well go back to standing on spinny chairs and doing things like, you know, it's that. So there are issues around reporting for sure, but there are also issues about the idea that, well, if there's zero accidents, then there can't be anything going wrong at all, which doesn't kind of feel right. I'm sorry, my cat is trying to get in the kitchen for no reason, if you can hear that. Buddy, over there.
What's her name, Billy?
Buddy. Yeah, but that's Mancunian, so that's Buddy. Yeah,
Buddy.
You guys say all this. It's an American name. you call everybody Buddy. Every kid under 4 is called Buddy, right?
I can't remember the names.
Anyway, we've now whiffled off massively. So I think that the things around reporting are really important. The demotivational factor is not to be underestimated if we are going to use this label. And I think that the foundational ethics, Ciaran, and you're quite right. Some of the people that proclaim zero target are some of the worst in the UK for the other things they get up to. And that is a secret, by the way. Feel free, read the court records, look up UK blacklisting scandal, see what you get. It's very interesting. It is indeed this misuse and abuse, the dissonance it causes, the frustration with those trying to work under it, with reality, and how that can fall out. I mean, Brent's noticed, if the ethical foundation creates this friction with the fact that we all know that we don't want, and nothing at work is worth getting hurt for. That's not the deal. So how can we sort of? I would love for us to be able to find a way of translating. I mean, do we even need to? I mean, I'm not a fan of branding. I'm not a fan of stuff. The way we know, I always say, the way we will know we have sorted out occupational safety in construction is when we never mention it. Yeah. Because then you are not talking, it doesn't even need a shout out because we just do it. But that is getting into these very complicated realms. I mean, I've seen, I love Brent's argument around the ethics. Is anybody selling these programs has a dream job? I mean, be a consultant, sell zero vision programs. What an awesome gig. You must be all right with people getting hurt. This is, you can't have that ethical position. And actually, you're kind of looking at this from a different way where it's not kind of figuring about, it doesn't, I think it's more trouble than it's worth. How's that for a nice Northern English phrase? It's more bother than it's worth. And I think we should put it in the bin and start with the good stuff, all the good stuff you mentioned, Ciaran, because as you say, we're not a part. But it's the clinging on to this notion of zero in some shape or form, and I think we should just chuck it. Anyway, over to you, dude.
Okay. Well, first off, interestingly, you said we will know when we've got safety sorted whenever we're not mentioning it again. So why is it so difficult to have zero programs without zero being mentioned? Because you took issue with that on the one I described. We didn't have to have zero in it. And you're right, we shouldn't have to have these conversations. But going back to why isn't somebody making money out of zero? And that leads to, I think it was Rakesh you had asked about ISA's leading indicators. I've long been a fan of ISA, the International Safety, whatever. Somebody tell me what ISA stands for, just in case there's a confusion over a fan of. But and I've spoken at many of their conferences and been involved with them a long time. And when they came up with their version of Vision Zero and launched it last year, I thought, brilliant, let's be a part of this. And then I read the crap that they produced as the Vision 07 golden rules. And then I thought, well, okay, that doesn't matter, because they want people to be Vision Zero trainers. They want people to promote the idea. I thought, okay, that's not bad. We can live with that. We can actually, with the right people in the right place, we can actually talk about Vision Zero properly. But then they handed it over to IOS to manage it, International Occupational Safety Health Institution. Now, that's it gone down the pan straight away. And now it's a money-making enterprise. So what they're going to be selling is snake oil, right, at a very high price. Again, the issue of Vision Zero will be further tarnished by that approach. Now, I don't know whether ISSA realised that's what they were doing, or whether that was just one of those, well, it's a leading international safety body, so they're bound to be able to do things right. And lots of people in this call would have views on that, and I have very strong views on that myself about what they do things right. Basically because of the qualifications they offer, and what they send out. And looking at I don't know what their number is, must be about 40,000 of them.
Wow.
Safety people in the UK. Now, it's about a fifth the size of USA. USA has got about 30,000 safety professionals. UK has got 40,000 for a fifth of the population. So, yes, there's money to be made in this business if that's what you're into. But that doesn't actually stop people from being harmed. Going back to that organisation I mentioned, there were 7 safety advisory officers in it when I joined. Within 6 months, there was 1. Because my first advice to management was to get rid of all your safety officers. You've got 2,000 workers. They are intelligent people. They can manage their own safety if they're given the authority and resources to do it. And stop paying these safety advisors 30 or 40,000 a year, whatever it is. So immediately saved them another £280,000 per year. I lost 7 people who probably never sent me a Christmas card in their life. But that's life. And interestingly, a few years later, and this is some request, Philip and I took to Seoul during the Seoul Declaration, the World Safety Congress, where we were asked to organise one of the symposia. And between the 3 of us, we had a number of sessions, and one of them was about safety advisors, particularly that if you're in the job long enough, you need to leave. And there's 2 reasons why you need to leave. Either you've done the job and safety is no longer an issue, so we don't need you anymore, or after all these years, people are still dying or still getting injured, and therefore you're not doing your job, so you should leave. And that was the premise of that particular session we run. You either sort of get to the program or get off the field. And there was a room full, there's about 90 people from all parts, and they're all sitting there. And towards the end of the question, there's one wee hand at the back came up, and says, yes, he says, what would I do if I wasn't a safety officer?
You could be a construction worker.
Yes,
we need trades. We need trades.
With your life, stop being an efficient waste of time and do something with your life.
Yeah,
but
do something meaningful.
Yeah, but I mean, that was part of the organisation who were behind what is now the Vision Zero golden rules, and I think they've made a serious miscalculation or mistake.
Ciaran, I'm going to have to yank you right back into this debate, I'm afraid, because again, I completely agree that the direction of zero is currently very worrisome, and I don't think we put it. Ciaran, you literally just said that. I wrote this word for word, dude. Right? You said A zero program without zero being mentioned. Dude, that's a program. Okay. Your thing was you said it was a zero program without zero being mentioned. That's all I asked for. I just didn't want zero being mentioned. This is my thing. So your program was awesome, but you didn't badge it, and it's the badge.
Mine was not a program, and I don't stand over it as a program. It was a process of thinking that the organization adopted. If it's a program, it has a start to finish, almost a finite life.
Yeah.
What I was saying in relation to your occupational health and safety was, if it's no longer needed, you can have a zero harm program without saying zero. You can have an approach in an organization. It's just the way things are done around here.
Thank you, which doesn't use the word zero either.
But it doesn't allow the need for the vision of zero to be forefront of an organization. It doesn't have to be within a written program. This is how we do Vision Zero. We approach things in a way that it's clear and understandable to anyone that that's an organization who cares about its workers and doesn't want anybody to be harmed because of the approach that they take.
And that is a fundamental agreement, right? That's not challenged. Nobody on this call is challenging that at all. But I am, especially what you've just mentioned about that we now have these zero ambassador. This is again growing another commercial market, as all things do these days. So it's been commodified, it's now being churned out, and Ciaran, I put it to you that perhaps it, like I say, it's now starting to do more harm. It's certainly not doing zero harm. I think it's doing more harm than it ever intended, and this is why I just want to put that little word in the bin. I don't want to put your ethical foundation. I don't want to put your beautiful iconoclastic utopia. I don't want to throw any of that out. But what I want to do is throw that word zero in the bin.
You do, because you use the term iconoclastic utopia in a derogatory term every time.
Why? No, I don't.
It's designed to demean the whole idea and thought, because people use that term not as a, well, wouldn't that be wonderful?
Oh, well, I'm using it to mean that would be wonderful, and I hope you know me well enough to know that that's what I'm using it for. Geez, I've had a debate in a conference where I said we didn't need money. What? Who are you confusing me with, right? I know that is what we need. We need to cling to that castle in the air, to that ultimate dream that we will get there, but we do not. Yeah, exactly. But we do not have to label it, because then it becomes corrupted inevitably by economic externalities. It becomes commodified and it becomes abused. That's where I'm going with that. I am not being sorry, Ciaran, for misunderstanding there. That is not the blueprint utopia is the one I think is shit. Okay.
And I'm programmatic, putting it into this kind of box, and this is how you do it, or this is how we're going to do it here, is maybe institutionalizes it too much that the workers can't handle it. That's not what you're talking about, Ciaran. You're talking about kind of like low level. It just becomes part of that idea, right?
It's by stealth, but by stealth in the sense that you recognize the workers as those who will drive the thing forward. You recognize their competence and ability. Whatever worker, whether you're talking about the worker who's on the tools, whether you're talking about the worker who's the designer behind it, the civil engineering worker, whatever, and they hate being called workers, most of them, by the way, but they are. Whatever, they have a role to play, right? And that's what we're talking about, and that's how these things ought to work.
Michael Beam, he wants to know who won the debate, a draw, nil to nil. Who's still on the call that wants to say? Just type in the chat, Fred or Ciaran. You have your mute.
Now I've clarified the misunderstanding around iconoclastic utopia, and that was not derogatory in the slightest. Ciaran, I live there most of the time anyway.
I love everything that you're saying, Ciaran. Where I kind of draw the line is, I think the same as Fred, in that people can hang on to zero. That's something. It's finite. 0 is 0. It's not like 0.01. It's not 0.02. It's 0, right? And so 0 is like, it's almost like you take somebody's ideas and you go, they go, zero's a lot, right? And then you say vision, and every single person in the world has an idea what vision is, right? Vision, perception, all those kind of softwares. So you take something finite and you pair it with something different for everybody, and it twists it. It twists that utopia that you're reaching for. I think that's. Am I kind of getting that right, Fred?
Yeah, it becomes it's too easy, and it makes people lazy, and they don't want to put in the graft that Ciaran, you have demonstrated, needs to go into this. They don't want to put that effort in, and where we end up is like I say, it gets corrupted, it gets twisted. We have people who know nothing. If nothing changes other than we get a new high-vis jacket with a new logo on the back, people aren't stupid. As you say, they're perfectly capable of sorting their own safety, and that's where the thing sits.
There is a big problem with that as well. And if we focus on the big hitters who make those mistakes and who buy the badges and can buy their way into all sorts of corporate niceties, what we forget often is that there are tens of thousands of workers out there working for lots of small companies, all of whom look after them particularly well. Without a program that talks about zero, but the vision of doing a job and doing it well and everybody coming home safely, it is not outside the bounds of it. But we forget about those because we focus on the negatives all too often. And we can see how the big hitters have a very negative perception of the world. And it's more than a negative perception of the world. It's disingenuous, I suppose, because they'll use and abuse phrases like Vision Zero to the point where nobody wants to use it because it has a wrong connotation to it. In the same way that I took issue with the utopia and that it's used and abused wrongly. Other words,
he's not going to take your call anymore, Fred. Just you know,
he doesn't love me anymore. I know. Carry on.
I think he loves you. Look at the sparkle in his eyes.
In the same sense that if you rebel against any technology or artificial intelligence, you're referred to as a Luddite. Forgetting the fact that Luddites were workers who were rebelling against oppression and mechanization. So I like being a Luddite. I like being a
Yeah, me too, dude. Every time. Trust me, my iPhone is in black and white, right? I'm trying to go back.
It's the right side
to
of
the cord on the wall.
Well, I have one of those, yeah.
Oh, I like that.
I don't know.
Before you can't string your mobile, just.
So I want to be respectful. I know you said that you had to leave at 10 after, Fred.
I do, yeah.
And I don't want to, go too long, but we're at 102 and I don't see anybody saying who's won.
There is some voting. So to explain to people, so what Philip has said there is 2-1. The overall score of the East Carolina debate is 2-1 to Ciaran over the last 3 years.
Okay.
So I lost twice, brutally and unfairly, Linda, I feel.
I feel like I was on the voting this last time, and I voted for you because I obviously I'm just going to reveal my vote. Can people type into the chat who do you think won this debate, or is it a draw?
I don't know. I love it. I mean, Nathan's got a point there. Let's just get rid of the people. We're cool. But don't say that, because you know that's what technology is promising. Jeez Louise, that Ciaran and I will be on the front line to stop that bad boy happening.
From what? From what happening?
The industry 4.0 revolution, where everything to do, particularly this is happening so much in the UK right now, everything to do with construction it's technology is just going to save everything. You're never going to need a dude to be able to fit two bits of wood together so they don't fall apart ever again. Ronan, you are not allowed to vote for Ciaran.
I know. I feel like his whole family's on here.
Yeah, they are.
Michael Beam, it was the students' fault, Fred.
It really was. It really was.
Draw.
John, that is so diplomatic. I love it.
John says it's a draw. Michael, are you taking a side? Michael, type it in the chat. Anybody else here?
Come on, anybody else on the call? Please go.
Nathan, who are you going to vote for? I feel like it's Fred. Nathan Nathan is a dear friend of mine, and he runs isitrecordable.com, and he's very much on board with Fred's positions, I think. And I think and Nathan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think his point of view is, if you say 0, right, most people here in the US, or a lot of people here in the US, will start saying, okay, well, I have to achieve this. It's an achievement point. And so to achieve it, they hide things, or they misreport, or obviously you can't hide a fatality. And if you can, you're really, really good.
Yeah.
But as far as like injuries are concerned, or harm is concerned, people tend to hide that. And, so that's kind of where he, what type of beer persuasion, Philip?
You can persuade Philip in lots of ways.
He's going to be my next corruptive person on this live stream. But in general, it looks like you guys have a draw.
Because I think we do.
And I believe the draw comes from that you really are arguing for the same thing. And that eventually, Ciaran will be wore down and he'll drop to 0.
Never.
No, that's not going to happen.
He'll drop to 0.
30 years, I'm not going to be worn down back.
Oh, Nathan's voted for Buddy. That's brilliant. Thanks, Buddy. You do not want to know what he's doing right now. He's literally doing the worst thing a cat can do in public. So I apologize. Well, he's cleaning. I'm not going to tell you where.
And now we've really gone down that road that shows we probably should wrap up this live stream. But you guys want to do some more of these sometime? Isn't this fun?
Linda, I thought I had to come live with you now. I thought this was the
you
deal,
come
right?
No. I'm putting addition on. We're putting an addition on. So yes, you can come live with me.
Bless you. That would be so cute, actually. No, seriously, I am open to all inquiries.
Okay. So thank you guys for coming on. This zero harm debate was, I don't know if it was so much of a debate over semantics. It kind of was a debate over semantics and not over philosophy. I think even Fred can say that a utopian, we're reaching for some type of utopia is a good thing.
We have to.
But naming it and giving people something that they can't quite all understand as being the same, or as being, when it becomes a program or a T-shirt or a patch, that it cheapens that reach for utopia. But that's just my summary. But Fred and Ciaran, you're lovely.
Thanks.
Thank you both so much for coming on. And I'm trying to get Fred to her, whatever she's got going on next.
I do.
But you're both going to be invited on for my next shenanigans. I don't know what it is yet. Perhaps we'll bring on the McAleenan family. McAleenan family.
There's loads of them.
This is like Dr. and Dr.
Yeah.
McAleenan. So thank you so much. This has been the Safety Struggle with Dr. Fred Sherratt
Nicely
and
done.
Dr. Ciaran McAleenan.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, and everybody have a great day.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Linda. Bye.